the greatest striker on the planet. A motel in Rio de Janeiro. 3 people he didn't expect to find there. And a $50,000 blackmail demand to keep it quiet. It didn't stay quiet. April 28th, 2008. Ronaldo Nazário, 2-time World Cup winner, 2-time FIFA World Player of the Year, the most feared striker in football history, ends up at a police station in the Barra da Tijuca neighborhood of Rio de Janeiro. Not as a witness, as the main character of one of the most bizarre nights any footballer has ever had. And here's the thing. His own version of events might actually be worse than what people assumed happened. Make it into English. Subscribe, drop a like, and let's get into this. To understand the full picture, you need to know where Ronaldo was in his life in April 2008. He was 31 years old, playing for Milan in Italy, but back in Brazil, recovering from a knee injury. The knees that had been operated on more times than most people can count. The knees that had already stolen years from the career of the greatest striker alive. He was also, by his own admission in later interviews, drinking heavily, going through a period he would later describe as one of the most difficult of his life. A man who had conquered everything football had to offer and was quietly falling apart behind closed doors. On the night of Sunday, April 27th, Ronaldo went out in Rio to celebrate. The reason? Flamengo had just beaten Botafogo, a club he supports. A normal Sunday in Rio. He went to a nightclub called 021 in the Barra da Tijuca, and at some point during that night, he made a decision that would end up on the front page of every newspaper in Brazil. According to Ronaldo's own account, given directly to police and later confirmed by the investigation, he left the nightclub and met a person named Andréia Albertini, known as Andréia. Ronaldo said he believed Andréia was a woman. He invited Andréia and 2 others back to the Motel Papillon in Barra da Tijuca. And it was only when they arrived at the motel and they disagree on almost everything except one basic fact. Everyone ended up at a police station. Ronaldo's version: he realized the situation was not what he expected, tried to leave, paid 2 of the 3 people 1,000 reais each to silent. 50,000 reais to not go to the press. About a situation that, within hours, would be on the front page of every newspaper in the country anyway. The extortion plan had some structural problems. Andrea's version was different. She claimed Ronaldo knew exactly who he was hiring, that he had used drugs during the night, that he had simply refused to pay what was agreed. She also, and this is the detail that gave the story legs, had filmed Ronaldo leaving the motel on her mobile phone. A video that went onto YouTube within hours. In 2008, before social media existed in the way we know it today, this story traveled faster than almost any scandal had ever traveled before. The employees of the motel called the police when the argument escalated. Everyone went to the 16th Police District in Barra da Tijuca. The delegado, the police chief, heard both sides. His conclusion was direct. His account seemed quite sincere. A person seeking to pay for sex is not a crime. It may be considered immoral, but it is not considered a crime. As for Andréia, she left the police station mid-deposition, just walked out, before finishing her statement. The delegado was not impressed. Andréia was later formally accused by the public prosecutor's office of attempted extortion for the 50,000 reais demand. She was the one facing criminal charges. Ronaldo went home, to his mother's house, because after a night like that, where else are you going to go? What happened in the following days was, by the standards of 2008, extraordinary. The story was covered by Reuters, by El País in Spain, by newspapers across Europe and Latin America. It was on the cover of Veja, Brazil's biggest news magazine. Ronaldo's girlfriend at the time, Bia Antony, ended the relationship by phone call 3 days later. Not in person. By phone. 3 days after seeing her boyfriend on the front cover of every newspaper in the country, coming out of a motel. Can you blame her? Genuinely. The story also had a twist that nobody had planned for. Andréia, who had been largely unknown before that Monday morning, suddenly became one of the most famous people in Brazil. She gave interviews, appeared on television, announced plans to write an autobiography, got offered roles in adult films and theater productions. Tripled her rates as a sex worker, according to one report. In the chaos of one of the most embarrassing nights of Ronaldo's career, Andréia Albertini briefly became a celebrity. For years, Ronaldo said almost nothing publicly about what had happened. Then, in 2021, he sat down with Brazilian TV presenter Pedro Bial for an interview on Globo, and he spoke about it directly for the first time. That's already been talked about. It's something that bothers me, but I only hurt myself. What I needed at that moment was therapy. It was a very difficult moment, certainly connected to alcohol. A very difficult time in my life. No blame, no deflection toward Andréia, no lengthy explanation. Just a man, 13 years later, acknowledging that something had gone wrong in his life during that period, and that the night in Barra da Tijuca was a symptom of it. The alcohol, the injuries, the weight of being Ronaldo Fenômeno in a body that was slowly stopping cooperating. It's not an excuse, but it is, at least, an honest answer. And then there's the part of this story that nobody really talks about. Andréia Albertini, who had survived the scandal, built a brief career from the notoriety, and was reportedly writing an autobiography about her life, died on July 9th, 2009. She was 22 years old. She had been living with HIV since 2006. She developed pneumonia, which progressed rapidly, and died in the ICU of a hospital in Mauá, São Paulo, before her book was ever published. She had said in one of her last interviews before falling ill that she wanted to leave the life she had been living, that the episode with Ronaldo had given her a platform she intended to use differently, that she was planning a surgery, that she wanted to be fully who she had always been. She never got there. She was 22. Here's where I land on this one. Ronaldo Fenômeno is one of the greatest footballers who ever lived. What happened in that motel in 2008 was not a crime. The police investigation said so clearly. The public prosecutor went after Andréia, not Ronaldo, because the extortion demand was the only illegal act in the whole story. But let's be honest about something. The idea that the most recognizable man in Brazil, possibly one of the 10 most recognizable men on earth at that point, genuinely did not notice that the 3 people he brought to a motel were transgender women, that requires a certain suspension of disbelief. Maybe he didn't notice. Maybe he did and didn't care and panicked when it became complicated. Maybe the alcohol genuinely clouded his judgment to that degree. We don't know, and the investigation didn't produce evidence either way. What we do know is this. Ronaldo was a man in serious personal difficulty during that period. He said so himself. The drinking was real. The isolation of dealing with career-ending injuries was real. The pressure of being the most scrutinized footballer on the planet was real. None of that makes the night less bizarre. But it does make it human. In a very messy, very Brazilian, very Ronaldo kind of way. Ronaldo Fenômeno retired from football in 2011. He's been open about his struggles with weight, with alcohol, with hypothyroidism. He owns football clubs now. He lives in Ibiza. He seems, by most accounts, to be doing better. It comes up in every retrospective, every long interview, every "where are they now" piece. And every time it does, the same question resurfaces. The one the Delegado answered in 2008, and that everyone has been quietly debating ever since. Did he know? Only Ronaldo knows, and he's not fully telling.